Lero, and the show is Friday Night Debates.
And in that process of accepting people, introducing those people to Jesus Christ, introducing them to the steps and the precepts of Jesus Christ.
It's disempowering for me. So, going back to being an African right now, if you talk to a young person in Africa and tell them to go back to the basics, I'll say go to farm.
Power Bank, which was established to say that we want youths to gain funds.
So I wish you can refer to me the examples of these instruments that have made it today for us to prove and support your notion.
To really spend the time in doing the research and doing the innovation in order to get to the point where you can produce a new product for.
This is Lero, and the talk show is Friday Night Debates. Today I'm joined by 3 gentlemen. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
May you all introduce yourself to the viewers.
Yes, certainly. My name is David Farley. I'm British, but I've almost become a Bulawayoite now because I was here so long. I'm a refugee from Britain anyway, given their virus problems. I'm a former investment banker from London, and I am now a monetary economist and entrepreneur, building a business to help Zimbabweans and the diaspora and other people around the world to save, spend, transact in gold.
Hello viewers, my name is Tinesh Skoke. I'm a graphic designer and I'm a young entrepreneur. Hi everyone, my name is Teddy Move. I'm a political scientist by training and I'm also an entrepreneur.
Thank you so much. So today this house is proposing that for Africa to emerge as a great continent, it has to press a reset button in terms of reforms and policies and revert back to the primitive way of doing things and start development from the ground. Gents, do you agree? Over to you, David. What do you think?
I do think a reset button is needed, in the sense that Africa needs to stop relying on the West. It needs to stay. I almost think that Zimbabwe and Africa more generally is a bit prone to treating the West as the bank of dad. When you sort of run out of money, it's okay. We've always got the bank of dad to go to, and that needs to stop. And you really need to understand, really get great clarity as to where you really are now, and build from here. And it's not like the investment capital isn't available from this. There's billions under the bed, there's billions in offshore accounts, and there's billions of investors, normal investors around the world that aren't Zimbabwean who would like to invest in this country. Not because of charity or because they feel guilty because of the sins of the past, because they're just business people. There's a good investment.
Yes.
That is where that's what needs to be mobilised, and it absolutely can be. But people need to learn, and entrepreneurs particularly, and business acumen and skills need to be developed. But the problem up until now, particularly in Zimbabwe, it seems to be particularly bad, to an extent in other places, but in Africa, there's just, the environment has been utterly unconducive to doing that.
Okay, we'll get back to you. As a young entrepreneur, do you think what he's saying is feasible?
Let me say, what he's saying is, it is feasible, but the first thing is Africans, I think we need to do is that we need to be who we are in the first place. I think that's where we can be able to utilize what we have.
What do you mean by who we are?
Because as Africans, I think when I say who we are, let me go back a little bit. When we were colonized, when the white people came into Africa, we had a certain lifestyle we were living. You understand? We were okay the way we were. And then when they came, they introduced a system. You understand?
Yes, yes.
Which is education and technology and all that,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But it's a good thing. But the thing, I think, as Africans, we have abandoned our origin of the white. When they came, they remained who they were here. When what they were doing that side, that's why they came and do here.
Maybe we abandoned what we were because it wasn't so good. You know, comparing the two, technology is so good.
Yeah, in another way, but I wouldn't support your point saying
Yes.
it was not good. I think is that as Africans, when the white came, they you know, when they came,
Yeah.
they made us feel like we are better
Yes, yes.
than them. They introduced education to us, and then we started going to school. We're going to have PhDs. And what did they do? They ran to the farms and to the mine.
Oh, okay. While you were in the offices.
We in the offices.
Okay.
You get the point. We are working for somebody.
Okay, okay.
That's my point. And also supporting that view. You know, as Africans back then, you know, we didn't have technology, but we could tell if it was to rain by the move of the wind. You get a point. If someone wants to detect, maybe want to build a borehole, they will just take a stick. You get, I don't know if you've heard that. They put a stick on the ground. That was discovery. You understand? And they can say, no, let's dig here.
So are you saying we should go back to the farms and go back to the old ways of doing things, abandon all the technology and everything that the whites came with?
Not exactly. What I'm saying is we need to go back, right, into the farms, into the mine, and let's implement the technology which is there.
Teddy, as a political scientist, do you think what he said, the politicians will accept what he's saying?
Before I delve into the opinion of politicians, I have a very big problem with his definition of who we are and his understanding of an African native. I think when you generally say an African, a true African is one wearing leopard skin back in the 1860s and whatnot, is digging to make a living and is outside of the scope of modernity. You are making a very huge mistake, and you are preempting every pan-African and every decolonial effort that us who think we are African as entrepreneurs want to penetrate into the fourth industrial revolution, who want to penetrate into the technology sector and whatnot, who might as well agree that we come from a past, just like every other civilization in Europe. They all had the stage of being barbarous and whatever. In Africa, we all had that phase of wearing animal skin, but we can't use colonialism as a reference of defining who we are, to say everything that happened to us after colonialism doesn't define us. Life after colonialism was still life. Black people were still black people. Africans were still Africans. And they were not living just to meet colonial demands or to satisfy the requirements of a black portrait or of an African portrait using the colonial standard. So that's where I disagree with you. And then secondly, for me, my understanding of, let us start from the beginning, it's rather more focused on the fundamentals, economic fundamentals. We can't pretend as if we are in 1869. We can't pretend as if Zimbabwe doesn't have a state. We can't pretend as if Zimbabwe doesn't have a government. And we can't pretend that institutions are not key in delivering economic growth. So starting from the beginning means going back to the fundamentals, mining, farming, and strengthening macroeconomic institutions so that we can be able to develop. The first thing that I identify as the beginning of everything is how we intend to harness locally found resources, domestic resource mobilization, to say in Zimbabwe, what are we doing to make sure that the government of Zimbabwe has sufficient funds to service things like economic growth, infrastructural development, and whatnot. I will give a case in point. We have more than 94% arguably of unemployment or people who make money through the informal sector. What that means is that those people are not paying for NASA. NASA, you know, the tax for employment. What that generally means is that in a population, let's say 100%, only 4% are contributing towards NASA and 94% are not contributing. Yet 20% of those funds is supposed to contribute in sectors like infrastructural development. The other money is supposed to be available for development purposes, investment even in your businesses. As an entrepreneur, when people don't pay tax, when we don't have enough funds, you don't even have money from government. We don't even have a viable private sector. So, starting from the beginning, to me, it is more concerned with focusing on macroeconomic institutions, production, and importantly, the attitude. I think Zimbabwe is facing a huge challenge when it comes to the attitude towards development. I heard my brother here, his attitude towards development is like, it's like development is something which is over there, where some people can actually have monopoly of discretion over
maybe he's just trying to say, you know what, we have adopted a lot, that we have lost the African identity. We no longer know who we are as Africans. We have adopted everything. That's the word.
I think there's a, and I've noticed this, and this is not just from me, some of my friends, local friends have said this, and I've seen it myself, and it's very sad, which is this perception that the whites are somehow better than us. And that's that seems to be quite sadly so deep. It's very wrong.
It came from somewhere, and I think we need to address where that came from. Who taught our children, who taught us that the whites are better than us?
And I think, to a certain extent, it's a practical. There's a certain reality that the whites tend to be richer here for reasons we're all aware of. So that you, so just in your brain, you tend to relate a white person to money in a relative sense. Conversation we just had. I think something which has not been done, and I'm not a historian, although I'm interested in history, is why is it that that Africa was, if you like, technologically behind when the whites came, and I don't think that's really been objectively addressed properly, so that people can. I mean, you could look at it. I mean, one possibility, for example, is that it's a lovely warm climate here. It's very fertile ground. It doesn't really take that much work to sort of eat, etc. Whereas if you're in Britain, you'll freeze very quickly if you don't. It forces you to actually kind of innovate and do a lot of that. So. And that's an example of why it might be that the further north you go, the more developed they are, because they had to get by. It's not because there's an inherent difference, it's just environment sort of forced it to happen, or inspired it to happen. And I'd also say, when it's true that you might have lost aspects of her identity, and some of that would be very unfortunate to lose. That being said, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and not be objective about what's good and what's bad. I mean, it's more efficient and far more sensible to go on a long journey by car than it is to go by foot or even by horse. And to say I'm going to go by horse because that's what we did a while ago, it's just silly.
Oh, okay, allow me to come in there. It's more efficient, but can we afford? From what you were saying, I think I'm picking up that it is better for us to go back to the way we used to do our farming long back, because we can't afford those irrigators or those electric machines, etc. We can't afford to have
I think you
them.
can. I think you can. It's about investment. And it's,
let me jump in. You know, my point, back to you and to you. My point was to say, as Africans, you get a point. Let's face one thing. As Africans, I always want to go back with the colonialism, because what happened is that they left Europe in different aspects. They see something we have here as Africans, you understand? The climate, the land, you get a point. If you go back, if you look back into it, when they came, right, they went into land. You get what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say is that as Africans, and let's utilize, we need to reset pattern to be where we can, they have their ways of doing things.
Oh,
Yes.
well, okay, we need to have an identity of saying this is how we do things.
Exactly.
If it's farming, this is how we do our
We
farming.
do, and then up to there, like now, we have technology that has come, isn't it? We need to apply that. But right now, recently, yes, if you have noticed, every child that is born into a family which is underprivileged, what is their main goal? I need to graduate. After graduation, I need to go and work in a bank, which means they are leaving the farm. You get a point. When they are now at there, you get a point. We keep on crying. In Africa, we are not paid. We are not paid. If you look back, who owns the bank? Right? The person who owns the bank, he is living in a farm.
Okay.
You get the point. So my point is to say, as Africans, even despite the technology, right, let's have an identity of Africans.
Do you now get him?
Yes, I do get him, but let me respond by referencing maybe one of the great Kwame Nkrumah in his neo-colonialist, articulating how neo-colonialism is going to come. The construction of identities is what I'm against. I think when you create a human being who has the right or who is supposed to identify with the modern structure of technology, with the modern structure, with the modern knowledge system, you are creating a human being. And then you are coming again and saying there is an African. What are you doing to us? When you are creating a human being who is fully entitled to modern day knowledge, and then you are saying there is an African who has a different way of doing things, you are hierarchizing humanity. You are creating a hierarchy and saying there is an African somewhere, but there is a human being elsewhere. And then coming back to this, our way of doing things. When you say our way of doing things in Africa is being competitive. There is no other way of going back to being an African right now. If you talk to a young person in Africa and tell them to go back to the basics, I'll say go to farming. But before you go to farming, go to university and research about effective mining. If you want to go to the textiles industry, go to the university, research, see how they are doing things in China. Because when you go back to your leopard skin, that you take 2 days to construct, and the machine in China is constructing 20 jeans in less than a minute, you are going to succumb to our competition, and you will not even export. And when you don't even export your commodities, as an economy, we are not growing. As a nation, we are not developing. We can't ignore that nations today develop because they export, develop because they are competitive in international trade, in the international market, and whatnot. So those are the things that we should be looking into. And our element of patriotism right now, we can't go back and want to construct that patriotism which is founded on identifying an enemy. Of course, colonialism is in the past. Yes, it's in the past, I will say that, but it's still there right now. And the way we fought it in the past should not be the same way we are fighting it right now. So, if you say going back to fight identity wars, to say an African is this, an European is that, when we live in a globalized
Okay, I think you want to engage.
Sorry, I want us to say something. There's a point you say, if you give an example of China, you say China, they are making clothes, isn't it, with the machines, isn't it? My point is to say, you bring a good topic there. As Africans, let me put it, I love that. I'm going to keep on repeating. As Africans, you get a point.
Okay.
Why can't we do, isn't it, with mobile life, as you're saying, with the new technology, why can't we produce grain? Why can't we produce meat and so forth? And we export. They are doing, if you look at it into China, what are they doing? They are producing phones, cell phones. They bring them to Africa. But right now, as Africans, what is it that we are exporting? That's it.
Okay.
You're not exporting very much.
Well, exporting.
The reason you're not, well, Zimbabwe particularly is not exporting very much compared to others because the environment has been so unconducive to developing the means with which to, I mean, you need investment capital to build the factories, you need a stable environment in order to really spend the time in doing the research and doing the innovation in order to get to the point where you can produce a new product for people to enjoy. And I think that it is true. And I remember I was on a plane once and I was absolutely convinced that it was time for Africa to really not just rise up, but demonstrate new products, exciting ways of doing things, that are absolutely from an African perspective and built on the great African past, but with a modern application. And that is something that the world is largely lacking at the moment. It's not completely lacking. Sort of, really go beyond their remit there. It's for entrepreneurs, driven, I believe, by the Holy Spirit, and really, it's really a calling in them. Says this is what needs to happen. I need to test it in the market and produce great stuff for people who then have the choice to buy it if they wish. To really decide what those industries are that are big. I mean, agriculture is, in a country like Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe is still way behind where it was in agricultural produce 10, 20 years ago, and that needs to change. And that's very, very important. But there's lots of other things, whether it's, energy, solar energy, there's a lot of talk of also hydrocarbons in this area. But the key thing is making use of the comparative advantage of the natural resources, and really, but the human side is the most important stuff. Innovation, development of goods, in a sustainable way is where Zimbabwe needs to go, and that's not something that anybody can decide in some Politburo in Harare. It's the first time I ever came to Zimbabwe. I went after the Zambezi, and that's what it just takes you. And yes, you're guiding, you're using it, but sometimes it tips you over, as it did quite a few times on that occasion. And that's great. It's fun, and you learn from it, and you try not to do it again. But.
Okay, Teddy, your last point, please.
I think rather to agree here with my brother, colonialism is not all. It is all over rather. So we should use new approaches to liberate ourselves from the oppressive international system. It's not only oppressive to Africans, it's oppressive to the global south as a whole. So we should change our perspectives to say, we are not oppressed because we are black, we are oppressed because there are some people up there who are in the global north who are not comfortable with the idea of development for other countries like Zimbabwe. And we should decolonize our status to say our rise should not be a charity. We should not be treated with kid gloves to say because they are black, they are colonized, please allow them entrance into the world of the developed. That's not what we want as Africans. So in decolonizing our approach to development, I would also suggest that young people should not experience themselves as victims. And there is this narrative that start small. Yes, starting small is one thing. But the idea of starting small should also be articulated. When you are starting small, you should have a vision of where you are going. 1. 2, starting small does not mean you should be informal and whatnot. Because in Zimbabwe, when you say start small, people think avoiding costs, not paying tax, not being registered and whatnot. So starting small should be more established to say when you are starting small, you are registering your company, you are compliant, you are contributing towards tax, so that whatever you are doing, government can then refer back and come back to you. And we need an industrialization strategy as a country, not at the theoretical level or not at the level of those speeches by the big political guys and economists and whatnot. An industrialization strategy should be known even by the general person or the lowest peasant or whoever to say, as a nation, this is what we are doing now. And we are doing this incrementally so that we come to this stage. And when we come to this stage, we get a competitive advantage. For example, I would recommend that young people right now, our industrialization strategy will be, let's go back to the farms. In Zimbabwe, we are past the land debate. The land is ours. We took the land. Nothing will happen. Nothing will change. The land is ours. We took back the land. And by taking back the land, I'm not saying, those the controversy around it, but I'm talking about it from a perspective of a business someone to say taking back the land, economic redistribution for the purpose of social welfare and equal opportunities, not for other reasons that we always hear about in the corridors of political movement. But when all of us revert to agriculture at the moment, we will be able to finance even our colleagues in the infrastructural sector, our colleagues in the service economy. For example, if you open an insurance company right now in Zimbabwe, or a life assurance company, it's very hard for you to have consistent customers. Why? Because they are not employed. They are engaged in some rent-seeking activities. Today you have $2, tomorrow you have 100, the day after you don't have anything. So if we revert back to the formal system, formalize everyone, go back to agriculture, and then from there we go to the processing industry. And then from there we go to tertiary stages where we can wear our nice suits and whatnot.
That's a great vision, Teddy. David, do you agree as we close the show?
Yes, I do agree with quite a lot of that. I'm always, I admit, a bit nervous about industrialization strategies because it sounds, as I say, very top-down and choosing, and I'd much rather it was bottom-up. But as long as you've got a financial inclusion strategy, or say strategy, but sort out the financial inclusion. I mean, entrepreneurs can solve most of these problems, particularly if the government does what its job. Then entrepreneurs can just do it; they don't have to get on with it, and much more powerful than people realise. We can help make that happen to get that financial inclusion and mobilise resources and get the industrialisation happening. I mean, I think on the land, I was interested if we took the land back. I'm interested in who are we?
Zimbabwe.
And actually sorting that problem out, which actually is a serious problem because agriculture needs to be developed and land title, needs to be sorted out. I don't want the land. I don't care from my own perspective, but the land needs to be titled so that the development can take place, and the investment can take place, and I don't care if they're white, black, or whatever. I'm sure maybe some Zimbabweans, but I don't.
There are white Zimbabweans as well.
There are white Zimbabweans as well.
And
the important thing is, I think what has sadly happened is that quite a lot of the farms that were changed hands are being operated by people that aren't really working the full land very, very successfully at all, or even at all. And that's very unfortunate because it was too politically driven, and that's a shame. But that does need to change if it's going to.
Okay. Thank you so much, James, for all your opinions. Anyone with something they want to share before we close the show?
Yeah, I wanted to add on
The African child.
on the land, as he said, on the fact that he said the land. There's something that he said, we took it, right? I think, let me put it to Zimbabweans.
Yes.
We claim we took it, but some of us, in the name of we took it, we haven't used what we took. I don't know if you understand me. If
Okay.
it's mine, but it's just here, seated there. When somebody comes, no, it's mine, but do you really know what this thing really does? That's what I just wanted to say. It doesn't matter if it's Zimbabwean, African, it's black or white, but in terms of we have the land or whatever we have, let's learn to use it. Let's learn to utilize what we have to our full capacity. It will give us something better. If you look at Great Zimbabwe, it's all land, but it produced something better.
I guess at this point you just have to agree and not engage.
Yes, I'll just agree.
Yes, for the sake of but.
Yes,
No but.
Yes. Let me agree with him. By taking back the land, when I say we took back the land, I mean the rightful owners, the legal owners. I don't mean, the racist definition of it. There are some racists in Zimbabwe, just like everywhere in the world, who might manipulate a certain subject and make it seem and frame it along racist perspectives, or some people chasing a political agenda or whatnot. But to me, the land reform is not only an ideological achievement. It is a social welfare program. It is an economic welfare program. The people who benefited from the land, there was a research that was conducted by Professor Sam Moyo and a publication by Teresa Smart. There were some groundbreaking findings. For example, the land that was taken back, 90% of it went to small-scale farmers who are actually utilizing it as we speak. Of course, they don't have much, they don't have irrigation, they don't have this, but the little that they are doing, they can afford to farm every farming season, they can send their kids to school, they can do this, they can do that. Of course, there is the 10% that was taken maybe by, people who just, position themselves for their own private reasons. And as you can see in Zimbabwe, a lot is happening. In 2018, if I'm not mistaken, the president launched the land audit. Just yesterday, there was an announcement by the Ministry of Information that some farms will be downsized, 107 million farms will be given to so and so. So Zimbabwe is in the right direction when it comes to the land question. Actually, agricultural scholars state that for any land reform program to actually take place, it takes nothing less than 25 years. And we are in year number 20 of it. And hopefully, with the current effort that the government is putting with instruments like Command Agriculture, we have this, we have that, we want to capacitate the small-scale farmers. We even have some private players, for example, Peter Cunningham once cited a program where they do contract farming with smallholder farmers, we give them inputs, we empower them. So our approach to agriculture, we took back the land, the rightful owners, the moral, legal, and we don't regret the land.
I know you want to engage, but for the sake of time,
We don't regret the land reform.
for the sake of time, it's okay. From our different perspectives, we have one goal. We want Africa to be great. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, viewers, for watching. Remember to leave your comments below. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you, gents. Until next time, remember to take care of others and yourselves as well. Bye for now.